Hi, friends. We have a new story for reading that we're going to start today. This is what the cover looks like. What do you see on the cover of this story? What are some things that you see? I see a man and a woman, a table, and it has some tools on it. This is a piece of leather. Empty shelves over here. This man is a shoemaker. He makes shoes and sells them. Do you have shoes? What are your shoes made out of? Some might be leather, some might be plastic. You might have strings to tie them or Velcro to keep them shut, or maybe they're slip-on, and some might be flat. You might have sandals. They're all made out of something similar. Where do you buy shoes? Maybe at Walmart or Target or a shoe store or the mall. Well, this is a piece of leather, and this shoemaker uses this. He cuts it apart and sews it together to make shoes. Do the shoemaker and his wife look happy or sad in this picture? I think they look pretty sad. The name of this story is called The Elves and the Shoemaker. What are elves? They're tiny, make-believe, fairy-like creatures. Elves. Now, let's think. The elves and the shoemaker. We're going to listen to the story to find out how the elves help the shoemaker and his wife. All right, let's put those listening ears on and listen to the story be read to us.
This is CD 2, track 5. The Elves and the Shoemaker.
Once upon a time, there was an old shoemaker and his wife who were good, honest people. They worked very hard. The shoemaker made sturdy shoes for walking, fancy shoes for dancing, and heavy boots for working. He always used the very best leather. He cut it carefully, stitched the pieces together with strong thread, then hammered the heel on firmly. Because the shoemaker worked so carefully, he could not make many shoes to sell, so he and his wife were poor. One night, the shoemaker said to his wife,
"Well, my good wife, I have only enough leather to make one more pair of shoes, and when that is gone, we will have nothing."
"We will still have each other, and we will still have our shop," said his wife. "Do not fear, everything will be all right." His wife's words cheered the old man, so he cut the leather and got everything ready to make the shoes the next day. Then he went to bed. In the morning, when he sat down to work, the shoemaker could hardly believe his eyes. Someone had done his work for him. Someone had made a perfect pair of fancy shoes out of the leather he had cut. The stitches were so tiny they could hardly be seen at all. The heels were hammered on so well that they would never fall off. While the shoemaker and his wife were trying to figure out who could have made the shoes, a customer came in. She was so pleased with the perfect shoes that she paid more than the usual price for them. So now, the old shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That evening, he cut the leather and put everything out on the work table to make the shoes the next day. Then he went to bed. In the morning, when the shoemaker went to work, what was on the work table? Instead of the pieces of leather, there were 2 pairs of perfect shoes. Once again, someone had finished the work, and this time 2 customers gladly paid high prices for the shoes. And now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. Every night for quite a while, the same amazing thing happened. Whatever work the shoemaker left at night was done for him by morning. Soon the shoemaker and his wife had more customers than ever before. One night the shoemaker said to his wife,
"Let's sit up tonight and see who has been doing my work for me."
His wife agreed. They hid behind a door and waited. Just at midnight, 3 elves appeared. Although they were dressed in rags, the elves looked merry. Quick as a wink, they sat down at the shoemaker's table and stitched up all the leather into perfect shoes. When the elves were finished, they tidied up the work table, and then they skipped away into the night. The shoemaker's wife said to the shoemaker, "Those elves have made us comfortable and happy, my dear. We should thank them. Why don't you make them some shoes? And I'll make each of them a hat and a coat and trousers." The shoemaker was very pleased with his wife's idea, so they set to work. The shoemaker's wife made 3 little hats in different colors, 3 warm coats with shiny buttons, and 3 pairs of trousers. The shoemaker made 3 pairs of tiny shoes and polished them until they glowed. That night, instead of leather, they left the presents on the work table. The shoemaker and his wife hid again to see what the elves would do. Just as the clock struck 12, in came the 3 elves. They sat down at the work table and got ready to work. Then they spotted the clothes and the shoes. They laughed and clapped and tickled each other. They oohed and ahed over all the lovely clothes. Each elf put on a new outfit and strutted around the room to show the other 2 how he looked. Then they danced and sang merrily all around the work table, all around the shop, and out the door into the night. The old shoemaker and his wife never saw the elves again. Perhaps the elves were busy helping another shoemaker. But the old shoemaker and his good wife never forgot the elves who helped them, and they lived happily ever after.
Did you like that story about the elves helping the shoemaker and his wife? I have some questions for you about the story we just listened to. What do we know about the shoemaker and his wife? Did they have a lot of money? No, they were poor, but they were hardworking and they were very kind. What did the elves make for the shoemaker and his wife? What did they make? They made the shoes, didn't they? Wasn't that awesome that the elves were so helpful and kind? How did this help the shoemaker and his wife? Well, they made the shoes so nicely and so carefully that people paid extra for them. And so that helped the shoemaker and his wife have more money to buy more leather to make more shoes. What did the shoemaker and his wife do to make for the elves as like a thank you? They made clothes and shoes for the elves, didn't they? Why did they do that? Miss H kind of already told you. To tell them thank you for all of the help that they did to them. How do you think the elves felt when they saw the clothes? Maybe happy or surprised and maybe thankful? How do you feel when someone surprises you? Happy? Miss H likes surprises a lot. I have a few more questions and then we will be done with this story for today. Were the shoemaker and his wife rich or poor? They were poor. How come? Because the shoemaker took his time and was so careful when he made the shoes. He couldn't make so many to sell at once. And then when the three elves came in, they were faster, so they could make more shoes. Why did the customers pay more than usual for the shoes that the elves made? Because they were so neatly done and perfect, right? The story said that the stitches were so tiny and the heels were so pounded in and hammered in so nicely. How did the elves show that they were happy about their clothes at the end of the story? They laughed and clapped and tickled each other and oohed and awed, and they danced and sang. Can you pretend to do that? Be excited about your new clothes like the elves were? All right. Great job, friends. We'll get to hear this story again soon.